I could do the my spiel. So, yeah, these reports, what they contain is the last complete year, and then what we're looking at for this year, and then this document is kind of going to form the basis or the building blocks for our budget going forward. So we're looking just to have a quick look at how the year is going so far for each service, and then get any of your input, and then we want to put all that together and put it towards a draft 2021 budget for your review in the coming months.
Okay, so like you and I talked a bit yesterday, and my misunderstanding of looking at the charts, I'm looking at the 2020 financial outlook report.
Yes.
Okay, is that the one I'm supposed to be looking at?
Yeah, I'll try and share my screen here. So yeah, this looks service by service at your what we're kind of projecting for this year, and then we have some notes at the bottom as far as some work plan, but we're just seeking your input for the upcoming year.
Okay, so the first one is the.
Yeah. So first will be grants and aid, and then we don't have much control over this spending, but we usually assume a large portion of the budget is spent. Anything that's not spent will just get carried forward into the future years.
Okay, so my problem is read what it says there. 2020 projection, it's got some numbers. 2020 budget, it's got some numbers, and then it's got some variances with percentages. So, you know, it's not real clear to me what I had in there last year, carried forward, and what is requisition. It looks like requisition was 24,815. Is that correct?
That's correct, yeah.
Okay, so we requisitioned that much. Go ahead.
So typically for this service, you have a budget of $40,000, and for the last couple of years, you've been spending about $20,000. But our projection is higher, just in case any of your spend goes higher.
Okay, so you're assuming that it's going to stay around 40.
Yeah, if you spend 35,804 or less, we can have a similar requisition as we did last year. So for this service, I don't think the requisition will be increasing, but that 35,000, what it is the maximum amount you could spend without increasing the requisition for next year and maintain the same budget. Does that make sense?
Okay, so that draws on another 5,000 roughly of reserve or whatever carry forward.
Yeah, anything left over just gets carried forward. So if I had to guess, I think you'd probably spend maybe 25 to 30,000. So if you did that, we'd have a slightly bigger surplus, and you wouldn't have to increase next year's requisition.
Okay. So basically, I could just say leave it as is, or what?
Yeah, just if you have any input, but for this one, we're just assuming you probably are going to look to have another $40,000 budget, and then we'll just keep it all max. We'll keep all the money in the service, and then you can give out grants how you please. So yeah, this one.
Okay. So we'll just leave it the way it is then.
Yeah, retaining service levels. And then we briefly talked about this one yesterday. So yeah, there is no formal wharf service yet, but we've always had this budget split off because it's a Transport Canada wharf. So in the upcoming budget, we're looking to actually extract the other three wharves and parks, just so they're all in one, all in the same grouping. But this one, there's no requisition.
Okay.
So nope.
Okay, so what we're looking at here on Function 132 wharves is the Transport Canada money and how it's being spent.
Yes.
Okay, so let me just stick on that first. So the money that's being spent is actually in the column it says 2020 budget or in 2020 projection?
The 2020 projection.
that's actually being spent on those wharves in 2020 or in 2021?
In 2020.
Okay. So what I don't have, what I don't ever see, is what it's being spent on. That doesn't come to me. I don't get to see it before it's spent. I don't get to see it after it's spent. So I'm just wondering, where did that money go and for what reason?
Yeah.
You've got some comments at the bottom about hiring a consultant for condition assessments and also build wharf components considered a priority. Well, that's always been sort of, the ongoing demand by the public that we would take that money that came from Transport Canada and we would put it towards making the wharves customized to the that we're using them, like Owen Bay, Port Neville, Surge Narrows really require a heck of a lot of changing around. It was what it was. It was.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking the old Surge Narrows now. We're not talking about rural northern communities grant new Surge Narrows, correct?
Yeah, so you're breaking up a bit there. But yeah, this is for the this is all just Transport Canada funds. Sorry, I didn't. What's your question again? Maybe repeat it.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to make sure that this was all just the transport funding and projections and nothing to do with the property that we purchased, the lease that we got, or the funds that we've applied for and don't know yet whether we've gotten.
Yeah, it's all Transport Canada, and then the budget's been so high because we have been planning to do all these condition assessments and everything else. We just haven't got out there to actually do them yet. But this function, just because it's solely funded by Transport Canada, will never have a surplus to carry forward. And so the actual spend. Pardon me.
Go ahead. I was just going to say that I really want to make sure, as the director for the, and, I'm the one that has to answer to these folks up in the middle of nowhere, everywhere. I just really want to make sure that what's the money is being spent on things that are, they're the priority items for the community. Possibly 10 years down the road, we might have to, replace that piling or whatever, so we're going to do it now, kind of thing. That we do the things that are needed right now, and then work our way through down the, down timeline and down the scale of money until we run out, and then at that time it'll become requisition for those things.
Yeah, so we want to look at bringing all the. That's one of the reasons for bringing all the wharves together, just so we'll have them on the same pool, and then have the manager kind of handle them all at once, just to get some economies of scale going in there.
Just to be clear, though, I am not at all in favor of bringing the wharves together that are now parks wharves under parks leases, or on parks leases, I should say, tenures. That I still am of the opinion that I want to see those funded by parks, not that we couldn't have an overall wharves bylaw that dictated how the wharves will be run in both Transport Canada situation and the part that they would all, they would have the same rule, but the funding streams would be divided. There'd be the requisition side for parks, and there'd be Transport Canada side for Transport Canada, and then at some point 10 years down the road, say from the beginning, there will be a requisition side for the Transport Canada wharves. That's where I'm coming. I'm just trying to be clear.
Yeah. So just for clarity, see, everything will happen under parks until there is a separate wharves bylaw. But what we were thinking of for 2021 and on is to move all the parks or all the wharves into the wharves service, and then essentially have two pots or two piles within the wharf. You'll have the Transport Canada side, and then you'll have the park side. So then there'll be, or the ones that are currently in parks. So just again, so all 6 wharves under one service, but then divvied up 3 by 3, one for the Transport Canada side, one for under the parks requisition.
Okay, but my question then would be, how do you, if you end up having a requisition for both sides, 3 and 3, that requisition would be split?
Yeah, well, the requisition would still formally occur under the parks bylaw, but yeah, just for display purposes, we would have the wharves in 2 different piles, so you can see the requisition amount supporting the 3 wharves, and then you'll see the Transport Canada draws supporting the other 3 wharves.
Okay. My concern, Mike, just so you know, is from the beginning has been I've been with this wharf divestiture program since it first started in the 90s, and it went nowhere for 9 years, and then it went into limbo because they walked away from the table. I went into limbo for about 5 years, and then they came back and were more reasonable, and we ended up getting the wharves with a substantial amount, a fair amount of money, I think, like fair for the what we were getting. So I want to make sure that we keep the 2 separated, even though they're all wharves. But I don't ever want to get into a situation, because there were a lot of caveats in that Transport Canada world that would or could restrict or whatever, cause us problems in the future. I don't want that to be transferred in any way to our parks wharves, which have a completely different set of rules under parks, under a regional district service that has nothing to do with Transport Canada.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. It's actually all those contract covenants that's forcing us to keep them separate. So like I say, that was the plan, to move everything into the 132 to separate them from the parks, and then just keep 2 distinct piles until such time as all that Transport Canada money is spent and we no longer have to report separately on it. So I think we're all in agreement.
Well, I think we are to a degree, but I want to make sure that the bylaw that was supposed to be introduced some time ago, a couple of years ago, for parks, mainly because of wharves, parks hasn't happened yet. But when it's there under parks, like there is a parks bylaw, and it does cover aspects of wharves. My assumption in creating a wharves bylaw was that we could focus more on the actual wharf usage and laws and regulations relating strictly to wharves, not necessarily to Upland Park. But right now, the way it stands, our park wharves are designated under the community parks bylaw. So things like, no residential use in a park, that applies to our wharves. It's in the parks bylaw. Okay, so I just want to make sure that those kinds of things continue, and that we fund them accordingly. So in this situation for 132 wharves, we don't really have to do much. The money's there. We're going to, it's my understanding anyway, from looking at this, that engineers or marine consultants or whatever are working with the communities to decide what needs to be done. Is that factual or not?
The actual work plan, I'll have to refer to Wolfgang for that.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, thank you so much, Director Abraham. That is the plan. So we're going to retake some of the work that was done by community service in the past year. We're going to look at what they advanced, and we're going to be working with consultants in the community. So this is going to be, we're going to collaborate on this to determine what are the priorities what is required by these marine structures, and also what's required by the community, because they're the ones who actually use these facilities. And that's how we're going to determine the scope of work. We're going to proceed designing and procurement and tendering these projects, so we can move ahead and hopefully do a lot of work for these structures that are out there in your area.
Okay, and I really appreciate that explanation, and Wolf, thank you. The one thing I would just comment, it's just a comment from me, as the director, has to hear from these people, and sometimes in large numbers of like 20 people, getting back to me on, why hasn't this happened, or why did it happen this way, or whatever. You can understand the dilemma at the elected level. I think it would be wise, in my opinion, okay, I'm just giving you my opinion. It would be wise if you were able to consult with the community to find out what the needs are. Mm-hmm. So like they may say the dock needs to be turned 90 degrees, just as an example, hypothetical. Or they may say it can be shortened 50 feet, hypothetical. If you have those needs first, there may be something in that, say, 50 feet that you would have if you hadn't consulted with the public. You might have gone out and replaced 3 pilings because they needed it, but they didn't need it because that 50 feet isn't needed. So do you get what I'm getting at? That we would actually be eliminating that 50 feet. So therefore, why replace the pilings? Does that make sense to you?
It does.
Okay, well, that's what I'm hoping, especially with the Owen Bay situation, because there's a very vocal, involved crowd up there that has, they've lived there for a long time, so they have a lot of experience as to what that dock needs to do. And I know they had a lot of discussion in the past with community services concerning access for a landing barge to be able to get in a certain landing spot. And the dock that was proposed and the lease that we were applying for did not accommodate that. Mm-hmm. So that we had to end up spending more time, more money to change it. And that was just a matter of, we didn't know beforehand. Now we know. It got done. I think it got done. I haven't had any complaints lately. I guess it's been approved by the community. So I'm just hoping that you will really familiarize yourself with, because of the fact, you're fairly new here, that you will familiarize yourself with the needs of the community itself prior to hiring the consultants to do X amount of work.
Correct. Yeah, and I appreciate your advice, Director Abraham. Again, as I said, this is something that we're going to be looking into as soon as we hit January 2021. It's definitely a priority to the engineering services department to go ahead and start looking to all these things.
Okay, well, I really appreciate that, because it will help those communities develop in the way that they should, and it will help them be able to develop, like, in the way of just even being able to get a landing barge to come in to bring them their fuel and those kinds of things that are essential to the community, because that was stopped. So now it sounds like we're on the right track, and it will come out of the money that we're talking about right now would come out of projection 2020. Is that where that money is?
Yeah, that would essentially, well, future work is going to come out of the 2021 budget. I don't think we're going to get much work done there in the last 2 months of this year.
Okay, so the 2021 budget, because that's not here, I can't really see what that looks like. What
Yeah,
is it,
we're
like in
that's
your
why we're doing this.
estimation? Where's it?
Yeah, for this meeting, we're just having a look at what's happening this year and how everything, and then we want to get your comments for how to shape the 2021. So like we have our default, the stuff that we do for everything as far as insurance and legal and everything else, but we're just trying to hear to collect your input for everything that's you know, kind of occurred over the years, or if there's anything we special we need to look out for as we move to draft the budgets.
Okay, so I mean, just in looking at the way you've laid it out, I think it's very good. Where you've got manager comments at the bottom, hiring a consultant, checking out the condition, that's essential. And the second part, I think, is the most important in my mind anyway for the community, is that the working with both the community and the consultant to figure out what conditions need to be dealt with, and then you can figure out what, or you know, you and Wolf and whoever else can figure out what amount of money needs to be put into that, and then I assume you'll bring that back to me in a column that'll say, okay, this is what we think the 2021 budget is going to look like. Is that,
Yeah.
am I correct? Am I in the right?
No, I think
All
you
right.
nailed it exactly. So my hope to you, like say, when we do bring this forward, is we'll have the 132. It's going to have all the 6 wharves in it, but they'll be divided into 2 piles so we can act independently. And then you should see a, you know, it's going to take us a while probably to establish the bylaw. So everything's going to be operating under parks till that time. But what you should see is 2 different budgets. So you'll see a tax increase on the wharf side, and then you're going to see a corresponding tax decrease in the park side. So I'm just moving it out of parks just so it's all out in the open and transparent. But yeah, formally everything will still operate under the parks bylaw until we have a wharves bylaw to take over, if that makes sense.
Okay, and you're assuming that that's going to be in 2021.
Well, for display purposes, I was looking to do that sooner or later, just because we have Wolf now. He's going to be looking after all the wharves, so I just wanted to button them all up into the one function for him to display it that way, and then within that function, because of the covenants, we'll have to keep it into 2 distinct piles till all the money's spent.
Yeah, I would certainly, you know, prefer to see that happen, where it's definitely 2 pots of money.
Yeah.
Very clearly defined, you know, this is parks, this is wharves, you know, never the twain shall meet, but they're governed under the same bylaw.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So I think we're on the same page, and like I say, it's just a budget too. So when you look at it at that time, if you want everything moved back in the parks, we can do that for you. But I think it'll be clearer for all parties involved. Okay.
So they could. You're saying, just so I'm clear, so you just said they could be moved back into parks?
Well,
All
technically, until there's a new wharves bylaw, I'm assuming that everything is currently operated under parks. Maybe Tom could correct me if I'm wrong there. But these budget docs are just for display purposes. So that's why we're trying to separate the parks. At the end of the day, it's all the Area C taxpayer. It's the same tax code that we send to the province, whether it's for the parks or the wharves or anything else. So all the budget is just strictly for display purposes.
Yeah, that's right, Mike. Because these encompass the whole electoral area, they're not broken down for purposes of tax notices or anything like that. It's part of the overall rate for Area C.
Yeah.
Okay. And there is no requisition right now for those 3 wharves anyway.
Not for the Transport Canada one. So there would be one out of parks, but we're just looking to shift both the expenses out of parks and the corresponding requisition. And then you'll be able to see, okay, these are what the 3 wharves are worth. And then as the service matures, we're going to have to figure out, like you say, the service levels for them and the, the proper amount of requisition. And then after the capital is all spent, then they're just going to operate, all as one.
Okay, I guess I'll just throw out one point that should be considered. A number of those are on they're on leases that are tenures that are considered wharf, Owen Bay, Port Neville, Surge Narrows. The Evans Bay, Granite Bay, and Hoskin Channel are all on parks. Like tenures that were applied through for the parks function. So they're on different tenures. So once we get to the point where we're doing a wharf under a wharves function that is not in parks, but it's on a parks tenure, there may be some considerations there that you want to look at.
Okay, that's an excellent point.
Yeah, I don't think it'll be difficult to change that paperwork from the province, because
well, you and I both know there is using the word not difficult with the province is probably an overstatement. I'm just joking around with you.
No, I hear you, but we're pretty much expert in dealing with them, so I don't foresee a huge issue with that. It's really just a descriptor in the lease documents. So, but yeah, when we get there, we'll deal with it.
Okay, that's fine. All right. So next is 158 feasibility studies. Is that correct?
Yes, and this operates much like your grants and aid, where we just keep the full budget. So any opportunities that come up the year, we have it available. If not, we just carry that surplus ahead to the next year, so it's all primed and ready for any opportunities. And so you have about 20,000.
As it stands right now, I got 20 grand, and there's property tax requisition of 1305 at the 2020 budget level.
Yeah, so 2021, if nothing goes unspent, we would just probably requisition for the minimum amount, like the 270, and then keep an even 20,000, just so it's an easy number to remember. But it's always good to keep the requisition current with the current expenses, then just kick the surplus along.
Okay, thank you. So that one's good. We're on to the next one. This is a really tough one. Every year I have a hard time with this one. I think we need to fight over $247. So let's get on with it.
Okay.
That was a joke.
Yeah.
Joke. Laugh. Ha ha. Okay. So that's good. We're done.
Yeah, we can fight over this one though. Cuco Sewer.
Yeah. This one, good luck.
Yeah.
Okay, let's get started.
Yeah. Now I know we had in the past a quick discussion on the like the surpluses and how those work, but the surpluses are an ongoing concern. So anytime you have the bigger the spend is almost like the bigger the surplus you should have. So yeah, so that's what you're seeing there, but it's not like a one-time free money or really like an overtax, because everything will go in. A contingency is a good example. So if we have like we have $1,000 legal contingency in there, we don't spend that. We didn't happen to spend it in 2020, so that would be $1,000 surplus that's carried forward into the future year. We would also have another $1,000 contingency to meet up, so there would actually be no tax implications for fee implications for an unspent contingency. So I wasn't sure if that came, well, it might not come through clear this time, but I'm not sure if there's any confusion on that.
Okay, I'm not seeing that contingency. Am I looking at the wrong document?
Oh yeah, it's just you'll have several of them in there, but on the last week's report when we were looking at that, I had a whole bunch of comments in there about unspent contingencies and everything else. Those don't.
Okay, so Okay, so the page that I'm looking at, though, we've got the budget projection shows 41,647 as a surplus, but we don't have a surplus. Is that correct?
No, we will have one that carried forward, but it's just all set to be used. So if you're actually looking at the surplus, this is the report we were looking at last week. And so this is like, it shows 50,000 of underspend. If you add up all these numbers, that equals 49,900. So it'll tell you what's the what the surplus consists of.
Okay, so operating expenses at 5058 at 23.1% variance means what?
That just,
sorry.
it's, yeah. What's important is any of the year-over-year change to the surplus, but yeah. So of that 23% means that you have essentially 23% of your budget left to spend. If it doesn't get spent, we just carry that forward into the next year, so it acts as funding into the future year.
So it will act as funding to reduce the annual operating cost?
It doesn't really reduce it. What it's going to do is fill up your contingencies again.
Is there a way to channel it so that it reduces the annual operating cost need?
You'd have to reduce your contingencies. So like the legal is a good example. Like there's $1,000 in there for any legal expenses. Like I say, this year, if those remained unspent, you're going to have $1,000 surplus. So we carry that surplus forward. And then in 2021, we're going to have another $1,000 budget for these legal expenses. But because you have that surplus, you don't have to tax or increase the fees or anything. Another good example is if you have $1,000 legal fees and you only spend $250 of it, you're going to have a $750 surplus. When you carry that forward, the next year is going to have that $1,000 contingency again, but you have a $750 surplus. So you only need to tax or collect fees for the dollars that you've actually spent.
Okay, I get that. But what I'm looking at is a number of $50,000. That has to, I mean, if that's contingencies, it's a lot of contingencies at $1,000 a shot.
Yeah.
So where is it coming from?
A big chunk of it's just wastewater treatment plant engineering. So in 2017 or 2018, there was a $42,000 budget set up to handle do some work on for the wastewater treatment plant and all that funding. So we've been carrying forward some of that since. So some of the chunk is of that. We also got a roof replacement project. And then we're had a really good year up there compared to 2019 as far as repairs and maintenance. So we have about 8,600 left there, and then we have that legal fee as we discussed, and then all other several contingencies we have for materials, tipping fees, everything else that added up to about 8,300. So if you add all these reasons up, they will explain that 50,000.
Okay. So that's what I was asking, is basically where did it come from? And is it actual money that will sit somewhere until it gets used? And is there a reason that it can't be used to reduce the annual operating cost next year? Rather than any of these things that are listed in the notes.
Yeah. If you used it to reduce, if we took this, if we got rid of this $1,000 legal contingency to say there's no purpose for that, you don't need it, that would have an impact on the amount of money you need. It's only when your contingencies account change, when they increase or decrease, it's going to have effect on your revenue.
Okay, but I'm still not clear on what the answer is on the question of, we had a huge increase, a 38% increase in annual operating costs this year.
Yeah.
I'm still carrying the flack on that
Mhm.
daily. I cannot, and the community cannot afford another increase next year. So I'm looking for places where you can find money within this budget that can be used towards that annual operating cost amount to not have to increase it to another amount, whatever that may be. Is this one of the places that you could take the money?
Yeah, and especially on the stuff that didn't repeat, but it'd be a small amount. But that's the only thing is next year is you're gonna have some debt payments and everything kicked in because we have to pay off the portion of you recall the additional works that were done through that grant, and then we moved over 350,000 from the extension project to your to the main collection network, and then that was paid off by 83 cents on the dollar, so it left about 16 or 17,000 to pay off. So we got to add that in, everything else. But all my penciled in numbers so far, which is going to be continued, is looking like we don't have to do another increase next year. But that was going to get thrown out the window too, is if we're successful on that grant application, and then we can actually start work on the treatment plant, that would change up the numbers.
Change up the numbers in the way of it would add to the annual operating cost?
Yeah, because we'd have to support the debt. There's no money in the reserves, so any of our portion, even though it's only 27%, all that's going to have to be funded by debt. So we'll have to add those servicing costs to your monthly operating. However, for that, if we do get a new plant, logically we should be able to reduce some of the contingencies, because right now with the old plant we have higher repair contingencies. So that would all depend on what the consultants say.
Okay.
But yeah, so fingers crossed if there's no huge breaks, and then if there's no debt consideration, there would be we're looking at having no increase next year.
Well, it would sure be nice. So if we can work towards it, that would be wonderful.
Yeah, but that thing. But no increase also means there's not going to be sizable reserve contributions or anything else. So.
No, I realize that. And we've been operating on a shoestring inappropriately for a long time. And, I realize it's not good budgeting to do that, but it's almost mandatory in this situation because these folks are not able to carry this kind of money. So,
yeah, we're really trying to smooth out that, and I know that was an ugly increase this year, and then but we're hoping now that the Band-Aid's pulled off, like future increases, be at a much more moderate pace.
That would be really nice. I've even heard from the most vociferous commentators on Facebook and email, et cetera, and my phone, they've been saying, even if it was just a cost of living increase, we'd be happy. So I'm going, okay, so you're going to get a cost of living increase for sure, because you've already told me it's okay. But
yeah,
this was like what, 20 times cost of increase or something? 10 times cost of increase?
It depends on where you measure from. If you measure from our 2012 rate, then you're about 2% a year. You're actually a little bit under 2% a year. It's the issue is they just never increase for a large period of time, and then it just all hit at once.
Well, yeah, and we also had some unexpected things like the outfall, et cetera.
Yeah, absolutely. It's that definitely didn't do well, but yeah, it's been a rough little time there, but we're hoping it settles down.
Okay, so we've got the external borrowing from Municipal Finance Authority. I assume that's for the 27%. Is that correct?
Yeah, so if the grant goes through, then we'd have to act on the boring.
Okay, and when is the expectation for announcement on that grant?
I'd hate to venture guess. For the last couple of years, the grants have all been delayed. We've experienced that with Recreate and everything else. They're just so political, and then they're just rebranding the same money. So usually, I think they quote like a 90-day turnaround or something. But we've already done the application a while ago. But I wouldn't be that brazen to venture a guess as far as when they're actually come out with it.
But it would be in this next year.
I hope so, but Recreate that took longer than 12 months to get. But there are some political change ups and everything else during that one. So, yeah, I mean, I hope it would be sooner rather than later. It should by all means be next year, but I wouldn't want to go on record venturing a guess.
Okay, just curious.
Yeah.
Okay, then we go to. Let me check one thing here. All right, so the numbers that you're showing me on 331 are basically not going to change the annual operating cost at this time.
No, we're not looking to any major increases. We'll have some accounts go up and some come down, but yeah, overall, just because we've just had this big increase, we're really not looking to make another announcement. So, and I feel you on that too, because all the when those brochures go out and everything, it's my number on the complaint line for a lot of them. So I get the calls here too. I'm not looking to increase that any, but bills are going out here soon, so they'll be coming.
Unless, of course, the area director wants to add an increase, we can do that. We can do another one next year.
Hey, it's you.
Yeah, better late than never.
Okay, so you're jumping in right at the right time, eh?
Yeah, I know. I looked at my timing.
Okay,
I just put the screen on and saw the Q Cove sewer, and I questioned my timing.
Well, hey, I just said good. I just said good work and move on.
No, and
So
I just want to provide an opportunity that if the area director does want to increase those rates in 2021, we're all ears.
Yeah. Well, don't hold your breath.
Okay, the next one.
Okay, 332.
Yeah, this is for the extension. So we have that parcel tax kicking in next year, and so there's a little bit of interest from the finance. Like it took us a couple months to get the actual long-term side of it. So all that debt servicing and everything will kick through, and there's just a little bit of interest in this year.
Okay, so I, glad you're here, Dave, because I still don't understand this. The parcel tax. When you say next year, are you talking 2021, Mike?
Yes.
Okay.
Now I understand there. It is confusing, and I don't know. We're gonna have to try and find another term, but this parcel tax is just for that debt that those. I don't know how many were left, Mike, of the 42 or 43. How many? 32. So of the 32 properties that didn't pay up front, we have to call that a parcel tax, and they are taxed this amount every year for, I don't know, the next 20, 25 years, however long that was. So that's just for these 32 properties.
And when you say that amount, you're just talking about a proportionate amount to come out to $4,200 at the end, plus tax or plus.
Whatever that is annually. I don't know what that rate is. Mike will have that, but yeah, they'll take their 40.
The only people that will be subject to this parcel tax are the people that were in that extension area, 38 or whatever it was, 2 properties.
Yeah.
Okay, so people that it started the sewer district, Like there's some in the Whiskey Point area, there's some in the Raven area, there's some in the Q Cove area proper, you know, the commercial area that have properties that are not developed. They are subdivided, or some of them aren't subdivided, but are hooked. They actually have hookups. They paid for hookups in the original buy-in to the sewer project. Those people will not be part of this parcel tax. Is that correct?
Correct. Now,
Yeah.
what we need to commit to, though, next year to help the system is those people that are not connected to it, not users of the system. We need to create a parcel tax. So we, and I'm assuming these properties you just mentioned will be part of it. If you're in the service area, let's say that, and you're not a user, we need to create a parcel tax for all the properties in there to collect something.
Okay, so this is the going to be the tough one, because there are some that have connected. They've paid their connection fees and they've connected, and the pipe's in the ground, but there isn't a house there yet. Okay,
Right.
so
They, in
now
my
our
mind,
state-
should be, yeah, they in my mind should be paying a parcel tax.
okay,
And my argument
give
there
them
is,
your
yeah, well, you know, I do have a strong argument for that, because you can't sit on the sidelines, pay nothing, while we every year after year pay the operation, maintenance, and upgrades to the system, and then at their convenience say, oh, now's a good time for me to connect, and you haven't contributed anything to the maintenance of that for over 20 years. So what we're going to attempt to do is then, I'm just for round figures, you know, lower the user fee by, let's say, $100 and introduce a parcel tax of $100. So the people that are using it would see no net difference, and those that haven't paid anything would pay $100 a year, or whatever we determine that amount to be.
Okay, so, but my question still would be for those people that I just mentioned that have already, that actually developed the system, and this is a phone call that I had this morning, which was, if they have a couple of properties that were in the original installation of the sewer, and they were contributors to making the sewer,
Right.
doing it, and now, and they did connect, you know, when it was appropriate time, they connected, so they've got all their inspected, connected, paid for connections, but they still have to finish their subdivision process with VHA with regards to water provision, things like that.
Right.
So when you go to them and say, okay, you got to pay again, does that not sound like we're charging them twice?
I don't think so, because they paid the capital installation, but like everything, it needs operational maintenance, of which everybody needs to contribute to that. So again, great, you put it in the ground, but year after year, we're spending money on operation maintenance to keep that system in tip-top condition, and everyone needs to pay. That's my argument to that.
Yeah.
Okay, and I'm not arguing with you on it. I'm just saying,
Yeah.
I'm trying to play devil's advocate here. If they are not connected, if they're not using the system, they're connected to it, there's, you know, properly subdivided, et cetera, et cetera. They're all ready to go except for their VHA certifications and all that have to happen. So they are not actually contributing to the use of the system. And
No,
the
that's why
wear
we
and
have,
tear.
yeah, right. Well, there's two things. There's a user fee for contributing to it and a parcel tax for maintaining it. So there's two things. If you're using it, you're paying more because you are using the system more. But if you're not using it, there's a parcel tax because you still need to contribute to the maintenance of that. I mean, we don't have to do that, Jim, but the downside is the users are going to pick up that slack because you need to generate money.
I understand what you're trying to do. I'm just trying to understand in explaining to these folks how it makes sense. So would the, maybe this is the answer that I'm looking for. Let's say, you know, the cost to the annual operating fee is $800. And then you put a parcel tax on places like I just mentioned. That parcel tax is not going to be $800, I assume.
No, it'll be lower. Yeah.
It'll be a lower amount to just say I'm paying something towards it, but I'm not using it. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
All right.
And so just to give you an analogy, this is, you know, I'll go extremes here. So you develop a subdivision. There's 100 lots in it. You put sewer and water in there, and we all know it costs X to maintain. It doesn't matter if you have 1 home or 100 homes. So you have a user fee and a parcel tax bylaw. So it gets registered, and in that year, 4 homes get built. So if the argument is the users of the system should only be the ones to pay for the operation maintenance, then you've got 4 homes contributing to a system that we're operating and maintaining for 100 users. I think everyone gets the logic in that. So what you do is you introduce a parcel tax.
Okay, so
Here's another.
When it comes time, sorry, go ahead, Tom.
I was just going to say, to put it another way, you know, I understand this sewer system was kind of delivered to our doorstep, debt-free and all the rest of it. But, you know, most sewer systems, like after 30 years, you've replaced just about everything. Like there is a cycle wherein you have to keep replacing, maybe other than land, you have to replace all of the components time and time and time again. It's not like it's debt-free forever.
Okay. And I have to tell you, you know, Dave, prior to your being here, the last CAO that we had, when we talked about this replacement over and over and over again, and they weren't tiny replacements, they were big ones, you know, $15,000, $20,000, $25,000 a pop. I had a long conversation with him and our engineer of the day and said, you know, it's kind of like having my, you know, 56 pickup truck. Eventually, I can only fix that truck so many times, and then I am absolutely losing money. I need to buy a new truck. And I said at that time that I was just not into okaying a budget that shows another 25 grand being thrown into a system that is going to break again that year, that I would sooner take the step and put in the new system. Let's get on with it. We talked about that for 3 years and it never happened. So it looks like we're doing it now, and I'm pleased to be doing it, and pleased to be getting the money from the province and the feds. I just hope this parcel tax thing doesn't backfire and that the regional district aggressively approach the people that are in this system months ahead of time of the bylaw being passed and explain it to them. Because, you know, no matter how well I think I understand it, they're going to trip me up somewhere and I'm not going to get it right. And then there's going to be trouble.
Yeah.
So
well,
I'm asking you.
No, I get that, and I'm good with it. So the only difference is you and explaining it, me explaining it. They won't trip me up, but they won't like my answer because, you know, nobody wants to pay,
fine.
right? Yeah.
I don't care if they don't like you. You know? I don't
Yeah,
care
no,
like
no,
you.
and I'll feed Wolf to him for sure. Yeah, he'll.
If I could just jump in, I know we're kind of beating a dead horse here, we can move on, but just 2 quick things. One of them is QCove is actually the rarity. It's one of the few systems that operate without a parcel tax. So up on the screen now, this is our friends at Sunshine Coast Regional District. as you can see, like every one of their sewer fees,
Yeah.
minus the odd one, is the only one that doesn't. And then now, if you look at like Port Renfrew and anything else, like I got a ton of examples, but most of them actually operate to collect these fees. And then as far as them already seeding the service and then building it up, I think they would have only paid like 1,500, like a very small amount, right? But when the actual bill comes due, it's going to be $3.1 million divided by, it'll take a lot of money. So really we need these parcel taxes not only implemented but then enforced for 20, 30 years, so you have enough of a bank to buy a new one. So
and I don't know if Jim can see this, but the parcel taxes are more or less $100 or $200. So with the odd exception, but yeah, they're a contribution, if you will, from people that aren't using the system but have it available at their leisure, if you will.
Yeah, and then
all right, I get it. I'm just asking for clarity that the regional district will explain it to them, and we'll go from there. The other thing is when putting in a user fee or a parcel tax, a parcel tax, do we have to go to an approval process for the service area?
I believe it's already in there, isn't it?
If it's not already in there, it's the board has to approve it. That's it.
Yeah, we don't need public approval.
We don't need public approval.
No,
okay,
because they'd never approve it, so you'd never collect enough money to run a system. So
how do we get away with that with this, but we don't with other things? Boy, oh boy.
Yeah.
I'd like to be able to spread that out to other things. But anyway, okay, so there's no public approval process necessary. All right, so pardon?
I was going to say, I'm pretty sure I'm correct in this, but if the service bylaw, the bylaw that establishes the service, has parcel taxes as an option, then there is no further need to go back to the public to pass a bylaw. If on the other hand that is not already in there, and I think it is, but if it's not already in there, then that would have to be approved by the inspector of municipalities before the board can make that change.
But not publicly.
But I'm pretty sure it's already in there.
Okay, well, maybe you could check up on that, make sure before we write any letters to people, because they may be expecting a referendum or something. Who knows?
Yep.
Okay, onward to function 536, house numbering, another tough one. Let's move on. Economic development, area C. This is basically the same as the grant and aid one, I assume. Like it's like.
Yeah, it pretty much acts as a grant aid.
All right, so it's just a matter of you're keeping that at around 40,000, and that's being made up by carryover and tax record. Is that requisition of 20 grand? That is actually happening?
Yeah. So the way these will work, if you spend $15,800, we'd carry the whatever's there of a surplus, and then you'd have to requisition the following year for $15,800. So essentially, the requisition is going to equal whatever you spend.
Okay. But my expenditure would be the 47,493, correct?
Yeah, that's just to date. You've only spent 20,000 there, but we don't control the spending, so we always assume pretty close to a full budget spend. And then
so
we had 40,000 too, just for 2019. The note here says historically you spend less than 20,000, so that's your typical budget. But in last year you had it increase for some reason. But
okay, so on this sheet I'm looking at, I have actually spent 47,493 or not?
No, you've spent exactly $19,669 this year so far.
Okay. So then the 20 grand is basically just to get it up to that 47 number.
Yeah, I suspect your 2019 data would actually be quite similar to your what's going to happen in 2020. And then it's
Okay.
but like I say, just for this service and the grants and aid, because staff doesn't control the spending, we just assume that you spend most of it. But if you're short at all, it just gets carried forward. So your 2020 requisition, plus or minus a few bucks, is going to equal your 2019 spend. And
Okay. All right.
then we got parks.
Community Parks Area C. This is one I have some comment about. I'm not sure if it's on this page or somewhere else that I saw it. That maximum levy, Tom, of 50 cents per 100,000, I'm not close to that yet, am I? Or Mike, whoever
Give me a
wants.
quick sec here.
Sorry, I asked Tom because he used to be the guy that would tell me.
Mike, can you scroll up just a little bit?
Okay, give me 1 sec. No, you're that's actually a pretty big requisition limit. No, you have lots of room still.
Okay, good. Okay, so under manager comments, you've got continued construction of Kwathiaski Cove pedestrian pathway. That was funded through a grant of $70,000. Where is that in here or in your papers or whatever?
That was
'Cause I know-
transfer of gas tax funds, and it's under the capital budget. And we've spent some of it.
Spent some of it, but what is the, like, what's coming out of the budget for that particular project? Or I just don't see where it would show up, that's all.
Are you asking what's been spent to date?
Well, it would be good to know if I can, yeah.
Mike, do you have that?
What this is the QCO Village Trail System?
Yep.
Yeah, the Harper Road Trail.
So we came into this year with a $40,000 carry forward, and as of a week and a half ago, we spent $18,921.
Okay, so I guess then it's, now that you're here, Aniko, I'd have to ask, where did that money go? The only place that I know of where money has been spent is on the section by the QCO Center down by the recycling depot. So somehow we've spent 38,000 of the 70.
Last year and this year.
Okay, what would be the two items then? I guess it would be, but maybe it's many items added up. Somehow we spent $38,000.
On the design and construction of the trail system that's currently in place and the clearing of the trail system that is to be completed next year.
The clearings to be completed next year, you mean?
The clearing and the surfacing and the vegetation for the remainder of the trail that we have authority to complete will be completed in 2021.
Okay, but does that take in, does the 38,000 take that into consideration? Or is that a different amount of money?
Mike, sorry, can you repeat what's remaining in the budget that we're carrying forward to 2021?
Barring any more spending, I have 21,800 left over.
So we have 21,800 remaining in the budget to do any additional works that has not been completed in 2020 and 2019. The budget that has been spent to date is for what you see on the ground, including all the planning and actioning of that path system to date.
Okay, well, I guess I'm concerned that we spent $49,000 then on just that short section from the driveway to the end of the recycling, and I think that's it. Like, I'm not sure what, there might have been some done on the other side of the store. I'm not sure. That was done by the stuff in front of the store. That was done by the store people, right? Lois and Paul and those guys. Is that right, Aniko?
The portion.
Did they ever sign on to working with us or not?
No, they have yet to sign on.
Okay, so basically that whatever work is done along the parking lot there, that was their work. But then our work started at the driveway and goes to the recycling depot, or yeah, sort of. That was clearing, landscaping, removal of the previous stuff, trees and all that. But other than that, I'm trying to figure out how did we spend $51,000?
Yeah, that.
Or sorry, 49.
That $49,000. I don't have all of the budget spends in front of me, but that is there's additional works that came out of that budget, not just the Q Cove pedestrian path section that you're seeing there, but unfortunately I don't have that in front of me now, so I'd have to report back to you on that.
Okay, well, I'd appreciate that because I know that was supposed to be that 70 grand, as I understood it. The way it was announced by Ralda was that it was for the Harper Road pathway, pedestrian pathway. So maybe you can get back to me on that before we do the next budget iteration. The continue with plan for capital works to surge store and wharf in 2021. That, as I understood it, was all under the RNC grant. Is that not correct?
Yeah, this is just speaking to project goals for 2021. So there is a small budget currently for the Surge Store and Wharf project. But at this point, the only spends that would be planned is for any sort of repairs or maintenance that are currently putting the SRD at risk of liability.
So that would be on the existing Surge Wharf.
Not the community wharf, but the new store wharf boardwalk platform that we own. We have
Okay,
a budget currently for that. It is there to potentially deal with any sort of issues that may arise as part of ownership of that facility and any liability that may arise.
Okay, in your application to RNC, was that not in, I thought that was all included. The walkway, the store, the connection to the other dock, all of those things.
That's correct, it is.
Okay, so then if that happens, if we get that grant, then this money won't need to be spent. Is that correct?
Except that we have to have funds in place for any contingencies as part of the grant approval process.
Okay. Continue with Granite Bay and Hoskin Wharf repairs. I thought we were done with Hoskin, maybe not. Are we? I don't know. I don't get reports on this. So.
The Hoskin Wharf still has some stability issues. If you recall, a while ago, we tried to come up with a plan that didn't work out, so it's still on the books as needing to be addressed due to storm events to secure the wharf.
Yeah, so that was more with the anchoring and
correct
redirecting the direction or whatever. Okay, and then the Granite Bay Wharf, I know there's one billet float that needs to be replaced that I ran into Murray Abercrombie the other day, and he was telling me that they've gone back to the guys that I got all the ones for free, and they possibly have one for them that'll be for. If not, then they're going to have to do something else. But that's just the wharf itself, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So now somewhere I saw it was on that other PDF that Tom sent me, where there is $20,000 set aside for I assume that's for riprap along the northern side of the parking lot, and then there was another 20,000 set aside for the boat ramp, and I'm wondering what that's about. Why are we setting aside 20,000 for the boat ramp?
I know that the $20,000 for the riprap is being carried forward. That's been in the budget for I think 2 years now. I'm not sure what's left for the boat ramp. It continues to require upgrades and maintenance.
Yeah. Each year I have actually asked for $5,000 to be put aside for the boat ramp, and it has always come in under. With Chris Phillips doing the job, I think it's been as low as 3 something. So I don't really want to have, be taxing for $20,000 just to have it sitting there. I'd sooner just tax for $5,000 and have it sit there until he does it again next year. It only gets done once a year, and then any minor pothole filling and whatever gets done by your contractor. The one thing that I would like to put on this budget for Granite Bay is, in talking with Murray, he was talking with your contractor, who was telling Murray that he's now 68 and he's finding it very difficult to lift the fire pump out of the box that we custom made, Murray custom made from Cape Mudge Boat Works. Great box, aluminum box that holds everything, all the hoses, tools, etc. But he has to lift it straight up the full height of the box before he can set it on the dock. What I suggested in talking with Murray was that we just cut a panel down the front, 2 cuts and a hinge at the bottom, and let the front panel flop down. He can slide it out, do the work, the testing, slide it back in, put the panel up, lock it up. And Murray thought that was, totally the best solution. And he said it would probably be a couple of $100. So that's what he's looking at. The part that I'm looking at, though, is I understand from him that we've only got 2 50-foot lengths of fire hose. We've got 324 feet of deck on that wharf. So we need 4 more 50-foot length fire hoses rolled up that can go in that box, and he said they all will fit. So if you could budget for 4 50-foot lengths of compatible fire hose, saltwater compatible, then we would have the ability to put out any boat fire at any distance on that dock, and we would also be able to go 300 feet if there's anything in the way of a car fire, truck fire, or whatever, boat fire on the boat ramp even. We could take care of all of those things in one swack. And when I asked Murray what kind of money are you talking, he said that basically, you know, we're talking hundreds, not thousands for the whole thing. So if we can maybe, you know, budget $1,000, I don't know. Is that
Yeah, thank you,
a possibility?
That's a good heads up. Yeah, those are operational issues. They can call me and we could deal with that prior to end of year.
Okay, that's fine. I'm not interfering in operations. I'm passing on a comment from the person that helped me build that wharf, Murray. And he worked on it as many days as I did back when we built the whole thing to start with the community. So, and the float parts that he's talking about, the billet as flotation, that was all donated by Marine Harvest, and they're on the, we've got a board there at the beginning that shows who donated what, and that gives everybody the credit due. Another thing that I would like to see out there is a suggestion for future planning at the beginning of the walkway to go out onto the wharf. If we had, you know what our sign looks like coming down the road, Aniko, right? It's a sign with a little cedar roof on it. Comes down both directions, just like 2 feet. If we had something like that, but smaller scale, that had a corkboard on it, people could put notices up. Otherwise, they're basically, when I was last time I was up there, you know, they're driving nails in, tacking things up there that then have to be either removed or they get all ratty and fall off or whatever. But if we had a corkboard, some push pins available, people could put up their notices, you know, boat for sale, whatever, and it would be undercover, so we wouldn't have to worry about things getting wet. And we could also put up a nice display even. I have a whole file of photos of when we built the wharf. It'd be nice to do just a little pictorial at the bottom maybe of how that wharf came to be, so that people can see the history of Granite Bay going back to 1895, when it was a, you know, steam railway, logging camp, etc. So I'm just trying to look after the history of the area also. And I don't know, maybe that can come out of, what's that other fund we've got for history stuff? Heritage. Maybe it should come out of there, or maybe it should come out of parks. I don't know. It's out of park. Keep it in parks. Okay, somebody write down those suggestions, I hope.
Yep, we got this all recorded too, so we'll have a record of it.
Okay, the other part is the we already talked about it under wharves. We talked about the draft and implement park regulation bylaw. This would be the Area C Parks bylaw, was an update. That's the one I just mentioned at the beginning. I said, you know, that we were actually going to update it to make sure that the language was clear, like no residential use in the park. That also included float houses at the wharf, because that's in the park. So I'm pleased to see that that's still there. Asset management plan, okay, we agreed to that before. Blanken Park upground or playground upgrade, what is that, Annika?
That's the budget for the playground replacement that was placed in the budget last year as per the risk and liability and the asset management plan for appropriate replacement.
Okay, well, I'm still not in favor of spending $100,000 on the playground at this time. I could see putting some money aside each year.
You already
$100,000 might. Pardon?
You have it in the budget currently, and I believe, Mike, correct me if I'm not wrong, it's not coming from requisition, it's coming from Community Works. Is that
You're
correct?
correct. Yeah.
Thank you. So it has no impact on your requisition, and it's already in your budget, just for clarification.
Okay, so if it's coming from Community Works, then I'd have to ask Dave if he's still there. Dave, we have a massive Community Works amount that has to come out for Connected Coast. Are you still there, Dave? Okay, so he's not there, but anyway, that's his latest conversation with me this week. Sorry, this last week. This is Monday, right?
Tuesday.
So I would like that money put back into Community Works if that can be done, because otherwise we're going to be short on the Connected Coast last mile. And I cannot do that because then we would lose out on an $8.3 million grant. So that's a scary one because we have to have that money. The other thing is that if we have a liability issue with that playground that cannot be just taped off without, yellow tape or whatever, then I would suggest that maybe we need to look at taking down any portions that are a liability for this year. I eventually want to rebuild that playground, but like I said, I can't afford to take that Community Works funding at this time. It has a higher and better use for more people. So can you do some magic on that, Mike?
Yeah, any unspent funds out of community work will stay within the community work. So if that project comes off or is otherwise addressed, then it'll get removed from the draw.
Okay, so I'd like it to come off of the sheet so that it doesn't look like it's gone when we go to the Community Works Fund to fund connectivity.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Did you want us to, when you say keep it on the sheet, like you just want to bump that project into the future? So it stays on and then.
I want it to come, I want the notation that it's coming from Community Works to be gone. And if that means removing the project, then remove it.
Okay.
And we'll take care of the liability issue through whatever other funds liability things get funded through
Yes.
to be able to block it off or whatever. That's for this year.
Okay.
Area C Parks Master Plan. Okay, so is that's in development or not yet?
It's in development.
Okay. Will I have some input into that at some point?
Yeah.
To be able to say which ones are important and which ones are. When you do a master, just out of curiosity, when you do a master plan like that for parks, we have different levels of park, as I recall. We only have a few active ones, and the rest of them are, I'm not sure what their category is, but do you just leave them in that category and you don't do anything if you're in the master?
Well, I mean, it would depend on the overall park master planning process and what came out of that process as per consultation with any significant user groups or the community, but certainly there'll be some sort of a hierarchy which would determine where resources and funds are focused for future park planning purposes.
All right, so the ones that are just like the little neighborhood subdivision chunks that we've taken here and there that we're not doing anything with and aren't being used, completely undeveloped, they will just remain most likely as undeveloped unless there's some, neighborhood need to develop the park. Is that correct?
Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah.
Okay. About right. It's better than nothing. Okay, address invasive species at Blanket Park. Well, we've been doing that every year with about, well, a whole lot of volunteer work, but I'm not sure what what impact this has on budget.
We have an invasive species budget for our parks department, our regular Area C parks budget. There was some discussions with QRS with respect to additional needs for invasive species removal, and asked that that be included in their budget, which is not appropriate given the fact that we have a budget currently for invasive species removal. So it was addressed on here just as a point of clarification, more or less.
Okay, do you know how much it is by any chance? Roughly?
Off the top of my head, I don't. It's rolled into our overall contract services for all Area C parks.
Okay. Because there are, like there's Broome starting to take over up at Granite Bay, so I guess that would, because it's a park, it could be included.
That's correct.
Okay. So maybe you could make a note of that one too. It's just, there's only a few plants, they're big, but you know how they are. They take over. Okay, so that's, which one was that? Sorry, that was parks, right?
Yeah,
Okay, and then we go to.
And one
right,
quick
so
one
that-
too for the 100,000 for the Belkin Park. You just don't want the draw coming from Community Works funds, correct? We could keep that on the project plan either in a future year. We could fund it by, maybe assume like an external grant or something.
You can keep it on there as long as it's not actually being costed to the community or Community Works.
Okay, gotcha.
Sure.
Yeah, so I mean, Mike, it would be great to leave it on there for 2021, just in case there is an opportunity there.
Yeah, I'd like to keep it on there just in case any grant comes up because they expect you to have a existing spending bylaw. So yeah, I'll handle that.
Thank you.
That was wonderful.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Okay,
Quadra Island
So
Community Hall.
then the community hall, we get a budget from them. I assume that's what this is in
Yeah.
front of me. So the 183,559 is what's been requested.
No, that was for the 2020. So they sent a new one that you forwarded the other day, and then that one's coming in at a 9% increase.
Okay.
And then and that doesn't include the 2,500 that they were requesting for the invasive species.
Okay, so we're canceling that.
Yeah, so
Right.
canceling that, and then if I just entered their base budget as submitted, it would be a 9.1% increase or $13,000.
Okay, so it's 13,000 on top of the 183, so we're looking at 196 roughly. Okay.
Yeah, 197, 110 for next year. And then that'll also depend on the actual requisition may differ depending on the amount of the carry forward, but if we're accurate, that 9.1% increase, yeah, we have to bump the requisition another 8% to match that.
Bump the requisition 8%. Okay, so that 8% increase would be to cover the additional 9% in the budget that was presented.
That's correct.
Is that what you're saying?
In addition to what they want, we also have some contingencies in there for insurance and legal and some repair and maintenance. So, and then we also have a community hall assessment. That would be the difference.
Okay. Do we pay tax on that? Just as a question, do we pay tax on the hall and the land?
Oh, whether we own it or not?
well, we own it. We own the land and the hall. But I'm not sure provincial government tax us.
Yeah, I believe it's exempt.
No, it is exempt.
Okay. Good, good, good. Okay, the community hall condition assessment. Now, was that not done when we did the earthquake assessment with the funding from the province? Like we
No.
got 500 grand from the province. They didn't assess the whole hall?
No. Not from that perspective. That was specific to size.
Okay, so this is what, just condition of like the walls and stuff like that?
Yeah, an overall, building assessment to determine if there's any necessity for any repairs or maintenance that hasn't currently been contemplated in the existing budgets.
Okay. All right, sounds good. Heritage conservation, fine, move on. Street lighting, move on. You realize you're probably going to get some parcel tax review notices, Tom. There's a 5.1% variance. My God. Those 3 or 4 people from where is it, Hardwick Island or someplace that drive all the way down here to complain for like $5. It's happened. Mike, the first 2 years that we went from assessment to parcel tax, we had 2 families, about 6 or 8 people, came all the way down from Hardwick Island and had to spend the night in Campbell River and pay for fuel all that way and do a boat trip over to Sayward to complain about, at that time it was around $2.50.
Oh.
$2.50 I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Anyway, interesting stuff.
Oh, I bet you get all kinds.
Okay, so Tom, I guess, would be the person on this one, I think, on the street light.
Yeah.
I've talked to you a couple of times, I think, about the fact that the number of the poles of the lights are not working, so we pay for them. And I believe Hydro gave us some kind of lame excuse about, well, if you tell us which pole it is, we'll come and fix it. They're on the island just about, I would think that they, in fact, night. So I would think that they could, in fact, get the number off the pole. You could even see that the light wasn't burning. So I don't know, maybe that could be suggested to somebody nicely at height. But I'm wondering about this LED technology suggestion. Is that an energy efficiency program from Hydro, or is that us asking what it would cost to go over to that?
I'm sorry, Director Abram, it's Wolfgang here. I'm just going to give you an update on that. That's a request, and costs are going to be covered by BC Hydro. So right now we're working with GIS department here at SRD, so we can respond back to Hydro on the number of lights that we have, the locations, and the type of LEDs. They have given us a couple of options to choose from. They have already advised us on what type of lights to use for specific locations, and we're working on that. So there is no cost to be incurred by SRD on this. It's all BC Hydro.
That's wonderful. Thank you very much, Wolf. I didn't realize it was you that was in charge of this. Before you were here, I always talked about.
Yeah, what I would do, Director Abram, I'm working with Jesse on this. We have another meeting coming up in a week, and I'm happy to provide you with an update next time we talk about this light item.
That's great. And could I please suggest that the remind you and everybody else at Hydro that the lights, whatever lights you choose, that they conform to the dark sky policy, and don't put out a heck of a lot of light sideways.
Right.
Okay, that's good. And so does that mean we're done?
Yep, that's the last service. So unless you have any additional feedback, comments, or concerns, let us know.
Let's see. No,
Okay,
I don't think I have anything else. Pardon me?
I say we got 25 minutes left before Area D kicks in. So
Let's just pad the time and stay on and talk. I would like to say thank you very much to Mike and all of your team, and everybody else that's contributed to this, Wolf and Aniko and Tom and Dave, everybody that has been involved with it. It's always just such a pain in the butt to go through this every year, especially when you're doing it with somebody like me who doesn't understand it. And I try, maybe eventually, but right now, this has been probably the easiest one yet, even though it's in the most contentious year we've had with that sewer increase in Kwathiaski Cove. And now with this parcel tax coming up, I'm not anticipating an easy run with that one. It's as much sense as it makes, it's not going to make sense to some people. So we're going to hear about it, and just to prepare you, get ready.
Yeah. No, we appreciate your.
Other than that, I think everything's good. Everything looks good. It was presented very nicely and simply to understand. I think the only comment I would make, Mike, is I don't know if this is even a possibility, but if there was a 2021 column, I don't know if you could have guesstimated into that column if there was one. That would have been helpful to sort of see.
Yeah, it's something we're looking at penciling in, but then I know other area directors definitely want their opinions heard before we would present a number. So yeah, that 2021 column will be coming at the in 2021, and then of course we'll have all the tax requisition data and everything to back up. So you should just start the next big iteration of this, actually see what it costs people. You're going to see the tax shift between the areas and between the classes from residential to business or anything else. So yeah, this is just the first step, but much appreciated.
Okay, and on that point, if you are going to do that at some point, is there an opportunity in this budgeting process to have another quick one-on-one just to look at that column, to say, yeah, that's good, no, that's not, yes, that's good, etc.? Or are we just going to have to do it at the full board table and tie up everybody's time?
I could talk with Dave on that, how he wants to roll it out. We've never historically scheduled it, but that doesn't mean that it can't occur.
It almost seems to me like it would be more efficient to get it out of the way like we're doing right now, but maybe in a half an hour instead of 2 hours. And then we know when we get to the board table, we're not going to have those monster discussions about, certain services like water or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay. Just a comment.
Yeah. No, that's a good point.
Do with it as you may. Thank you, everybody, for being here and for taking the time to walk me through this.
Okay.
I appreciate it. And yeah, so I'll see you later.
Yeah. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Okay, you too.
Okay. Bye.
Bye, everyone.